Hello, wonderful people. We are back with Amber's Confessions, and today we are going to be talking about modeling. I've been modeling for a really long time now, kind of an off and on thing and more of a hobby than anything, but I kind of wanted to share a little bit of my experiences and like best moments and worst moments, and some of the kind of like modeling 101, and if it's something that you're interested in doing, some of my tips and what my journey looked like. So hopefully it's interesting. I have some good stories for you guys, so let's get started. Okay, so where should we start? I started modeling, let's go back to when I was about 12, somewhere around there. And I really wanted to get into modeling. I don't really know why, because I'm like a super introvert, so it kind of makes no sense at all that I would want the attention of modeling. But for whatever reason, I thought it would be a really cool thing to do when I was 12. So my parents signed me up for like a modeling boot camp thing through one of the agencies back where I lived in Ontario. And it was like a week-long thing where you went every day and they taught you like really useless stuff about like how to curl your eyelashes and how to walk on a runway, even though I'm pretty sure none of us in that group were actually tall enough to ever have the potential to be a runway model anyway. So in a lot of ways, it was kind of a cash grab, but it was a cool experience, and out of that, I got to do a test shoot with a local photographer. And just to take you way back here, the test shoot was done on film. So I did the test shoot with him, and then I actually ended up doing another shoot with him and with my sister as well. So we both shot together for that one. And I do actually still have the proofs from that shoot kicking around in a bag somewhere. My mom just like dug them up from the archives the other day and gave them to us. And they are something else. So that was kind of my first dive into like the idea of modeling, but it really didn't take off. My sister and I both kind of wanted to get into the industry, and so we did go see a couple agencies around where we lived, but a lot of them were just so gimmicky. Like, I'm not tall enough and my sister isn't tall enough to ever be like a fashion runway model. But we wanted to get into like maybe commercial modeling or like lifestyle modeling where, you know, like I just want to be in a Sears catalog. Do they still make Sears catalogs? So anyway, we went to see a couple agencies, but they were so gimmicky, like, oh yeah, we'll sign you. You just take this like 3-week course through our modeling school, and the cost is $5,000, and then you pay for your test shoot with the photographer for your comp card, and your entire comp card is going to be shot in one shoot with one photographer on one day, and that's going to cost you another $2,500 for the shoot and printing and blah 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 blah. So anyway, a lot of them were scams, and so unfortunately, much to my dismay, it never went anywhere. But a little bit after that, I discovered Model Mayhem, which isn't really that popular anymore, but back in the day, that was like the go-to if you wanted to get into hobby modeling, to connect with models and photographers. So I found the site and I signed up, and back then there was another one, One Model Place, and that one was like, I don't know, just not as good as Model Mayhem, but a lot of people had profiles on both. So I signed up and I did, one of my really earlier shoots was done with a photographer who's based out of Ancaster in Ontario. And we went down to, there's like a kind of ruins site around there, and we shot outside. And I still have those photos as well, and those are still actually some of my favorite photos. Like, they came out so good. He was so talented. He was really hesitant to work with me because I think I was like 15 or 16, and he wasn't keen on shooting underage people, which I don't blame him. So my mom had to come along, and but it turned out really well, and I think that's what really kind of ignited my passion to stick with it and to keep going with it. So moving forward then, I started kind of dabbling, working with people here and there, but none of it was really superb quality. But that's kind of the nature of starting out in modeling, right? Is everyone's trying to work their way up. So if you want to work your way up to being worth it for the good photographers to shoot with, then you have to start somewhere and build experience and build yourself up a little bit. All right, so now we are pretty close to me being legal age in our story timeline. A little bit before I turned 18, actually, my sister, who is 2.5 years older than me, she did her first nude photo shoot. It was with a local photographer who was working on a project for actually a coffee table book, believe it or not, about figures in their natural spaces, something like that. So she did the shoot, and she, like, when I asked her about it, she raved about how cool it was, and it's like so liberating to just put yourself all out there, and that he was really professional and the photos looked really good. So she really just kind of raved that it was an awesome experience. So fast forward a couple weeks, and I turned 18, and I ended up working with the same photographer on that project. So that coffee table book does actually exist, and my sister and I are both in it, and that was my first nude experience. And I will say that I have to agree with what my sister said. Like, it is really liberating to just like let go of your insecurities and just kind of put yourself all out there. Obviously you can't do it when you're not 18 yet, because you just can't. So in some ways I think that's really good, because then you're kind of getting old enough to be able to understand the repercussions of having photos of yourself out in the world where you don't have any clothes on. I don't have any regrets about doing it, but it did lead me down a path that kind of like actors, when you get typecast into a certain role, modeling is kind of the same way. So as soon as people find out that you do nude modeling, a lot of times the only offers that you ever get are for nude modeling. And while that's fine, and I love doing it, and I've had some amazing shoots and I have some great memories from it, I do sometimes wish that I was able to break out of that and still do other interesting shoots as well. So anyway, I digress. So the coffee table book does exist, and actually a funny story with that one was I was going on vacation, and my friend and her boyfriend were coming over to house sit for me and look after the pets. And I had just moved in, so everything was still kind of like in boxes and chaos and whatnot. And so she was like rifling through some boxes with her boyfriend. They were like looking for kitchen stuff. And she pulls out the coffee table book, which somehow got like stashed in a box with a bunch of random things that like just really had nowhere else that they belonged. So she like pulled out the coffee table book, and it was like, what is this? Like, why on earth does she have a book of like naked women? So her and her boyfriend thought it would be like fun to sit on the couch and flip through it, until they like got to photos of my sister and I in it, which is really awkward to try and explain. Like, oh yeah, by the way, now you and your boyfriend have seen me naked in a book. Yeah, I did that. So my family does know that I model and that I do a lot of nude modeling, although we don't really talk about it. I don't think they have any issues with it. Like, they're not I mean, my mom has a pretty colorful past herself, so I don't think that they're like opposed to it or offended by it or think that I shouldn't be doing it. But it's kind of one of those like weird things to talk about with your family, so it's kind of like don't ask, don't tell. So anyway, that was my first nude modeling experience. I have done over the last couple years, like, I've been kind of off and on with modeling a lot because life just changes and you get busy. I've had 3 kids, so 3 pregnancies, and then birth, and then recovery, and then having a newborn. My last priority is taking my clothes off and doing a photo shoot. And then like just life changes, like I moved across the country, I got a divorce, I got remarried. So sometimes it does take the back burner, but I would say I've probably done hundreds of shoots over my life. I mostly do it for fun. I do sometimes get paid offers, but I have to say that like it's kind of how I was saying earlier about like you gotta work your way up. So I find that a lot of the offers that you get when you're kind of a hobbyist who just does it on a casual basis, a lot of the offers that you get are from guys that really don't have much else to bring to the table. So they don't really have like a lot of skill or a lot of ideas or creativity, but they have a camera and they want to shoot somebody, ideally someone with no clothes on. But since they can't really offer you anything of quality for your portfolio or for your collection, they offer you money. So I will say that like on occasion I have done a paid shoot, usually when I'm really desperate for cash. That's when I do those. But I know that a lot of models have made it really successful and travel around and work with photographers and get paid just doing like artistic nude shoots. I just want to clarify, by nude shoots I mean like nothing like erotic or explicit. I mean like artistic like figurescapes and done in like an artsy way. So some people have great success with it. Personally, I really like to kind of control my image and what images of me exist out in the world. So I think that's part of the reason why I've never really gotten like big into pursuing that avenue of it. Just because while I may get paid for my time and my efforts, I don't really want like a whole boatload of like kind of subpar or amateur photos of myself floating around that could get dug up sometime in my future. So I'm kind of really conscious about choosing photographers and shoots that I think that I will be proud of over time and that I won't feel ashamed if they get dug up sometime in my future and people see them. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of wrap up because it's getting really hot in my room right now, and when I'm done shooting this and I can put the blinds back down, I'm going to do my best impression of a Hulk and put my window air conditioner unit in my window by myself because my husband is not here, and it is really hot out today. And unfortunately, we're in a townhouse, and the unit here, they have like a no window air conditioner rule, which really sucks. So we just kind of like put it in when we need it and then take it out when we're done with it, which also sucks. But I guess some of my kind of tips, if modeling is something that you're interested in, that you want to get into, my best tips would be networking is super important. So within the community, a lot of models talk to each other, but even more so, a lot of photographers talk to each other. So if you create a bad reputation for yourself by not replying to messages or ghosting people or not showing up to a shoot, word travels really fast, and you can actually really long-term damage your career or your hobby and not get the opportunities presented to you anymore. So I would say act with integrity. Do your research. There are creepy people out there. They're everywhere. It's not limited to photographers. So make sure you do your research. Ask about who they've worked with, check their references, even ask other photographers that live in the area if they know anything about that particular photographer, because a lot of times if they've done things that are like creepy or hitting on people in the past, those models will have worked with other local photographers, and a lot of times will share their experiences with them. So a lot of times other local photographers are some of the greatest assets to talk to if you're trying to get a feel for what somebody is like. Be aware of what you're shooting. So before you ever go to a photo shoot, make sure you have your limits set. So set a hard line, and if you're shooting and it's supposed to be up to swimwear and that's all you're comfortable shooting and comfortable having photos of you exist in, then set that as your hard limit and know that in your mind before you go there, because sometimes you can get really caught up in the atmosphere of shooting where it's really exciting and you feel sexy and it's like invigorating, and so you can be a bit vulnerable where a photographer could suggest like, oh, that it looks so amazing, but it would look so much more amazing if it was like, just take your top off and just cover yourself. And if you're not comfortable with that, it's really hard sometimes when you're in the situation to be able to put your foot down, especially when you're younger and maybe don't have the experience advocating for yourself. So set a limit for yourself and make it very clear to yourself and to the photographer that these are your limits and you are not willing to go outside of them. So you will shoot anything up to this concept, but nothing beyond that. Other tips wise is have fun with it. Photography and photo shoots, it is a very creative process and it's actually a lot of fun. So don't get too caught up in trying to make sure that everything is super perfect. Every model out there has bad shots, even from some of the most amazing photo shoots where, you know, we see one photo out of maybe 400 and 399 of them were duds for whatever reason. So don't beat yourself up if there's bad photos. Everyone has them, but have fun with it because it is a blast. You get to meet a ton of people. And lastly, I would say keep your goals realistic. So for myself, when I was 12, I maybe didn't understand what was realistic for me, but I'm 5'4", 5'5", somewhere around there. I'm never gonna grow anymore, and you know, I'm about, I don't know, 10 inches too short to be a runway model. And I know that now, so I know that my niche is working as a hobbyist, working with local photographers and just having fun and chatting and coming up with some cool photos, and that's fine for me and I'm perfectly happy doing that. But when you're going into it, you know, a lot of people like to refer back to the quote of like, well, Kate Moss is only 5'6" and she made it, and I really hate that thinking that like you really expect that everyone's going to be that exception. She was an exception, and part of that was because she was so young when she was signed. And there was an expectation she was going to keep growing, but it never happened. So if you become the exception, that is amazing. And if you put a lot of hard work into it, you really can create something for yourself out of it. But I would say just be cautious not to expect that you'll be the exception. Okay guys, so that is it for this week. I hope that you kind of enjoyed our story time, and I don't know if you would have learned anything from it, but I hope that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. If there's something that you'd like to see on my channel, leave me some comments or connect with me on social media. I would love to hear from you. I am always open to cool ideas of things to try. If you have not yet already done it, I beg you, please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up and check out some of my other videos. I do have some pretty awesome hauls posted right now. My last video was the Fashion Nova lingerie haul, so you should definitely check that one out. We put a lot of effort into that one to make it super awesome for you guys, and I hope that you love it, so go check that one out. I will link it for you so you can see it, and we will be back next week with another video. Until then,